Welcome and thank you for joining us here at Industry Insights. My name is Sean Marshall. I'm the founder and director of Prosumer Connect. We've called back our industry expert on glass, Steven Lurie. Thank you very much for joining us once again, Steven.
Thanks for having us again, Sean.
Great
and
stuff.
Hello to all of you again.
Fantastic. Today's topic we're unpacking is repair versus replace. And PG Glass, I think, is one of the companies that aggressively drives, repairing before replacement. So in a sentence, Stephen, give us a bit of insight. Why the big drive from PG Glass to repair versus replace?
So I think the most important thing is it's easy to summarize. The three reasons, okay, and then I'll go back to why it's so important, but safety, time and money. Okay. So it's important to repair your glass before it turns into a crack, because especially once it becomes a crack, it becomes a safety issue. Okay. Time is a huge thing for most people these days, and a repair can be done in 30 minutes, whereas replacements can take a lot longer. And in more modern vehicles where there are a lot of safety systems like front-facing cameras, and other sensors and everything that are included in the glass, that repair can take even longer. So certainly from a convenience point of view, and then a repair is far cheaper than replacing a windscreen. And therefore, the more times you can repair, you can delay that absolute cost of a replacement.
Absolutely. Now, Stephen, I want to put you a bit on the spot here. If you talk about glass just hypothetically and a ballpark figure, how much percentage would you say is private sales and or repairs versus the industry at large, the insurance industry? Do you have a sense of what the market split is roughly about? On that, and I won't hold you to it. I just want to have a sense of it.
It's always been complex to calculate that. I mean, as you know, the sort of figure bandied about for comprehensively insured vehicles is about 30% of the car park.
That's it.
But it tends to be that once vehicles are insured, those people have a greater propensity to repair and replace than people that might be forking out cash.
Fair enough.
So it tends to be about a half-half between insurance replacements versus cash replacements. Okay. Bearing in mind that in that scenario, cash would also include companies that are self-insured or their excesses are high enough, that the cost of glass would fall into a cash replacement.
Okay, fair enough. And the specific reason why I asked that to Stephen, to the community is, similar to the assessing world, average cost for an insurance company is absolutely crucial, and there's a responsibility on us all to, retain the insurability of our industry, because fundamentally, like you rightfully stated, the figures vary between 30 to 35%, depends who you listen to, that says that's the insurance market. And glass certainly forms a big part of your basket when it comes to claims. I'm not going to mention percentages based on my own experience, because I might be giving away some of the insurance companies that I've worked for. But the fact of the matter is, the average glass repair cost is a critical measurement for any insurance company. So you guys have got a huge responsibility in getting that right.
That's absolutely correct. And it's obviously one of the reasons we drive a repair as well, because every time we repair, that incident is far cheaper than a replacement incident, and it does enable the insurance industry to reduce the average cost of claim.
Fantastic.
On glass.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a competitive advantage. Driving average repair cost, or repairs will drive your average repair cost a bit lower, and that's a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Okay. But I think, and that's a measure that the insurance industry uses to ensure that they keep claims costs down.
Yes.
But even before that was, front and center of mind for insurers, we drove repair. Yes. It has a number of other benefits. Yeah. Repairs have less impact on the environment, because you're obviously not throwing away a windscreen with glass and vinyl and all of that. As often the resin impact is far less. As I say, time for the consumer themselves. So there are a lot of ancillary reasons to consider a repair before a replacement.
So you actually did it for the right reason first, and the benefit just automatically bumped onto the insurance companies and so on. So
absolutely, and we know cost of claim is a big driver, and obviously the lower we can achieve cost of claim with any insurer, that's got to spill through to premiums at some point in time.
Great stuff. So Steven, let's just quickly unpack, when can you repair and when does it require replacement? Can you give me and the audience some indication as to what to look out for, and when can you repair and when is a replacement required?
So, generally speaking, it's the size of the chip and the location of the chip that makes that determination.
Okay.
So any chip that's 25 mils or smaller in diameter generally can be repaired. And as long as that chip is not in the A zone, which is basically the zone right above the steering wheel, it's about 30 centimeters wide, and it's that zone directly in front of the driver's view.
Okay.
You can do a chip repair in that zone, but then the chip needs to start at less than 10 mil in size.
Okay.
You also can't do a chip repair when it's too close to the edge of the windscreen, so it needs to be, generally speaking, 4 centimeters or more inbound from the edge of the windscreen for a successful chip repair.
Why is that? Is it compromising the strength of the glass, or why is that?
So, in the windscreen production process, you apply quite a lot of heat to the windscreen, and the windscreen does sit inside a mold.
Okay.
And the mold is made of metal.
Yes.
And when you're applying that heat to get the shape of the windscreen, generally speaking, what happens is in the area of the windscreen where the mold sits, you have slightly more heat than in the rest of the windscreen. And so what you have is what we refer to as a little bit more tension along the edges in the glass from that. And therefore, chips in those areas tend to be the chips that run far quicker into a crack.
Okay.
And when attempting a repair, in most cases in that zone, it's likely to be unsuccessful. So those of you that have had a chip will know, if it's anywhere near the edge of the windscreen, those are the ones that before you could even blink an eye, they've turned into a crack.
It's actually true that you now mention it. I just never understood the logic about it, and I was never aware that you guys applied that. So A zone, 4 millimeters, you said, from the sides, that would automatically require that.
And then these days, with cars that have ADAS systems, advanced driver assistance systems, you have a lot more sensors that are placed on the glass, and you have what we call front-facing cameras. Those are the cameras that look at the road lines, the road signs for all the modern safety systems. You generally cannot repair a chip in front of those sensors because you don't want to affect the functioning of those sensors.
Wow.
So in more modern windscreens, position of the chip has become more critical.
Wow. Okay, that certainly complicates your life a bit more with all these fancy technologies that's come in. But we see it across the motor industry, you know, and the repair industry is, these safety mechanisms is fantastic for as a consumer, you know, but it certainly brings about complexity for you guys.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Then I wanted to just check on how safe is a repair. So say all the boxes are ticked, it's not in the A-frame, it's not 4 millimeters on the side, it's not affecting any of the technology in the windscreen. How safe is it to do a repair?
Once you've done a repair, it restores the windscreen's integrity. So after a repair, that windscreen is just as safe as it was before the chip occurred. Oh, wow. So absolutely no change in safety. It restores all of that. Obviously, it has to be a good repair, yes. But there's absolutely no safety issues with the repair.
So it's not a case. So do you get it from time to time that you do the chip repair, and then after that chip repair is done, you know, is there? I guess my question is, does it have a longevity? You know, does it last for a specific time, or is there a possibility that it starts running again? You know, does that happen?
So, in a very small amount of cases, it's really an exception. If the assessment was done correctly, so the chip fell within the size range, it fell within the correct position range, and the repair was done properly, then it is highly unlikely that that ever turns into a crack. Normally, where it still runs or turns into a crack, you can normally go down to seeing that the prep wasn't done correctly, the area that needed to be cleaned out wasn't cleaned out, or the resin wasn't inserted quickly, or the chip repair just wasn't done the way it should have been, and then that can happen. But it is such a small percentage of repairs that we ever see that happen.
Fantastic. Now, what's the benefit to the consumer at the end of the day, in electing? Because I'm assuming that you get a lot of clients that are either insistent on replacing when it's a chip, and I'm assuming you get 50-50 against some people wanting you rather to repair it. So what drives this? What's the benefit to the average client that is, let's talk about the insurance market specifically.
So obviously the one aspect we obviously push is time. It does consume less time and less admin for the consumer in terms of the amount of time they don't have a vehicle and that type of thing. Okay. But the other thing is it is quite a big reduction in cost, and even if you're insured, that reduction in cost spills out over time. Sure. I mean, you don't want to be replacing a windscreen annually if you can delay that and rather have a chip repaired, which reduces your overall cost as an insured, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, the less you replace a windscreen, the less opportunity you have for the unlikely event of a workmanship issue or something like that, or wind noise issues or anything along those lines.
So service aspect.
Yes, and in the case of modern cars particularly, with the ADAS systems, you would want to keep that OEM glass in there as long as possible, because with these new systems they have to be recalibrated, and that recalibration is super important, and that's another time consuming and cost adding thing that comes into play with the replacement of the glass. So it's another sort of inconvenience to the customer to have the recalibration done. Wow. Although in our case with PG Glass, we've now rolled out recalibrations nationwide, and we can do a recalibration on a windscreen when we replace, but it does still add time and cost to the replacement. So as far as possible, you'd want to keep your OEM windscreen there, or even the replaced windscreen, as long as possible, and avoid replacements.
Great stuff. The one thing I need to put you on the spot with, and I know you do for numerous insurance companies, but what I do hear a lot is that repairing a chip doesn't have an excess with many of the insurance companies. So the added benefit to the consumer is, have the chip repaired, there's no excess payable.
That's correct. It's highly unlikely that there's an excess to pay on a chip. In fact, in most cases, a chip repair is free to the consumer. It's covered by the insurer in full. And it also, in almost all cases, doesn't affect no claim bonuses. Okay. But if you're unsure, if a consumer is unsure, we can do that check for the insured. So if they contact PG Glass and give us permission to contact their insurer, we can check all of that for them. We can tell them whether there's an excess, whether it's going to affect their claim. We'll do that query for them. Okay. We try and make it as low effort for the consumer as possible.
Fantastic. Steven, that sounds fantastic. I think from our point of view, it's simple. Repairing a windscreen is safe to do so there is no risk to the consumer at the end of the day. Like Steven has highlighted it, it's faster, it's quicker, and it's more cost effective at the end of the day, with the added bonus benefit of most insurance companies not charging an excess for it. So guys, be on the lookout. As soon as you see something develop, don't waste time, get over to PG Glass and make sure that we repair those chips. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Steven, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.